Procrastination is not a discipline problem. It's not a productivity problem. It's not a time management problem. It's not because you don't drink enough water this morning or because your phone is in the wrong room. Procrastination is one of the most misunderstood states in human experience, and almost everything you've been taught about it is wrong. If discipline worked, you'd already be done. You've tried discipline, you've tried apps, you've tried the 5 a.m. club, you've tried Pomodoros, you've tried calendar blocking and accountability partners and the dopamine detoxes and cold showers. And here you are, still putting off the thing you said you'd do. That's not because you're lazy. That's because procrastination isn't what you think it is. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you procrastination through 5 different lenses, 5 paradigms. The technical definition almost nobody gets right, the psychological mechanism, the neuroscience, and the part most people never even considered, the philosophical and esoteric layer, which is where the real key actually lives. And by the end, I'm going to give you the holistic protocol that pulls from all 5. Not a productivity hack, a protocol. Stay with me. This one is going to land differently. This is a free training. There's no pitch coming for the next 25 minutes. What's coming is the most complete breakdown of procrastination I've ever put into one place. And it took me almost a decade of work, meditation, and study to assemble it. My name is Emil August. I've been studying the mind for over 9 years. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, a certified business coach, and a certified meditation master. I've done over 2,000 one-on-one sessions, and 4 years has been intensive hypnosis work, mostly with founders and business owners. And I tell you that not to impress you, I tell you so you understand that what I'm about to share didn't come from a podcast. It came from sitting across from real people in real rooms week after week, watching the same pattern repeat itself. Here's how it's going to flow. First, the definition layer. What procrastination actually is and what almost everyone gets wrong about it on a basic linguistic level. Second, the psychological layer. The internal mechanism that's actually driving the behavior and why it's never the thing you think it is. Third, the neurological layer. What's happening in the brain when you procrastinate and why willpower can't outfight it. Fourth, the philosophical and esoteric layer, the deepest cut. This is where I'm going to go places where you almost certainly haven't heard before, including a hermetic principle most people fetishize without understanding. And fifth, the synthesis, a holistic, tactical protocol that draws from all 4 lenses and gives you something you can actually run with. If this resonates, I'll show you the next step at the end. If it doesn't, you'll still walk away with more clarity than you've ever gotten from a year of self-help content. Let's start with the word itself, because almost nobody does. To procrastinate is literally to belong it to tomorrow, to send something forward to a tomorrow that conveniently never quite arrives. Now, here's a part that almost everyone misses. In Roman culture, procrastinato wasn't always a vice. It was sometimes a virtue. A general who delayed engagement to wait for a better terrain was not procrastinating in the modern sense. He was practicing patience. The Romans had a separate word for a bad kind, ignavia, sloth, cowardice, avoidance dressed up as wisdom. So already on the level of language, procrastination is 2 different things wearing the same coat. There's strategic delay and there's avoidance. And the trick your mind plays on you every single day is to dress one up as the other. I'm waiting for the right moment. I need more research. I'll do it when I'm ready to flow. It's not the right energy yet. Some of those statements are wisdom, some of them are Ignavia in a tuxedo. And the difference is almost never the words, it's the body underneath them. Now, the modern academic definition. The most widely cited researchers on procrastination are Piers Steele and Joseph Ferrari. Their working definition is this: procrastination is the voluntary delay of an intended course of action despite expecting to be worse off for the delay. So read that again. Voluntary, intended, despite expecting to be worse off. That last clause is the entire point. Procrastination is irrational by definition. You know it's going to hurt you. You do it anyway, which means, and this is the reframe, procrastination is not a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. You are not avoiding the task, you are avoiding the feeling the task triggers. That sentence is going to repeat across every paradigm we touch today. Hold it close. Most people, when they finally accept procrastination, is psychological stop at the surface layer. I procrastinate because the task is unpleasant. That's true, but it's the only first floor, the first level of the building. Let me walk you through 3 floors. Floor 1, mood repair. This is the basic mechanism. The task triggers a difficult feeling: boredom, anxiety, self-doubt, shame, the threat of looking incompetent. Your nervous system, doing exactly what it was built to do, reaches for something that lowers the difficult feeling. Instagram, the fridge, suddenly cleaning a bathroom at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. This is what Tim Pychyl, the leading procrastination researcher in the world, calls giving in to feel good. Short-term mood repair at long-term cost. And every time you do it, you teach your brain when difficult feelings arise, escape works. That's floor 1, level 1. Most coaches stop here. They give you accountability and dopamine fasts, and that's it. But the real game is upstairs. So let's go to floor 2, identity protection. This one almost nobody talks about, and it's the one that explains the smart, capable, high-functioning person who still procrastinates on the thing that matters most. If you don't finish the book can't be judged. If you don't launch the offer can't fail. If you don't put the work in, the result can't prove you don't have it. Procrastination is sometimes the most sophisticated thing your psyche knows how to do, because it protects an idealized version of yourself from being tested. As long as the work is unfinished, the dream of who you could be is intact. The moment you actually finish, you collide with the results. And the result is always smaller than the dream. This is why people procrastinate hardest on the thing they care most about. The pattern is not lazy, the pattern is reverent. It is guarding something. If that one just landed in your chest, yeah, that's the floor most people are stuck on. Now floor 3, self-revision avoidance. This is the deepest psychological layer, and almost no one names it. The reason your subconscious resists the task isn't just because the task is hard, it's because completing the task would force you to update who you think you are. If you finally write the book, you're a writer now. If you finally fire the wrong client, you're a different kind of business owner. If you finally have the conversation with your partner, the relationship is now this version, not the old one. every meaningful action collapses an identity and creates a new one. And your subconscious is allergic to identity revision because its number one job is continuity, sameness, predictability, survival. When you sit down to do the thing, you don't feel resistance to the work. You feel resistance to becoming the person on the other side of the work. Procrastination is your psyche refusing to ratify a new version of you. Now let's look at what's actually happening between your ears when you procrastinate, because this changes everything about what you can do about it. There are two systems competing for control of your behavior. The limbic system, ancient, fast, emotional, present focused, and the prefrontal cortex, newer, slower, rational, future focused. The limbic system feels, the prefrontal plans, and the prefrontal does not have direct authority over the limbic. It has influence. That's a very different relationship. So when you sit down to write the proposal, here's what actually happens. Your prefrontal cortex sets the intention, write the proposal. Your limbic system reads the emotional signature of that task. Maybe it's tied to a difficult conversation, a fear of judgment, a memory of being told your work isn't good enough, and it fires off a stress signal. Cortisol rises, heart rate climbs, attention narrows. The body does not know the difference between a tiger and a Google Doc. And the limbic system, because it's faster and older, gets the steering wheel first. It steers towards anything that drops the stress signal. That's your phone. That's the snack. That's your sudden urge to check your email. Willpower in that moment is a child trying to wrestle a sumo wrestler. The fight is over before it starts. Add to that something called temporal discounting. Your brain values rewards on a curve. The further away in time a reward is, the smaller it appears for the mind. Right now, the future you, 6 months from now, who finished a book and signed the contract and feels good, that future is a faint outline. The Instagram dopamine hit available right now is vivid and concrete. Your brain does the math badly and chooses the close-up reward over the distant one. That's not a moral failure. That's a mammalian wiring. And then the third piece, the default mode network. This is a network in your brain that lights up when you're not focused on a specific task. Mind wandering, daydreaming, rumination. For chronic procrastinators, the default mode network is overactive, and the task positive network, the one that locks you into deep work, has trouble taking over. So when you sit down to start, your brain stays in fog. The lights are on, but the right circuit hasn't engaged. Here's the punchline of the neuroscience layer. Procrastination is not a willpower problem, because willpower lives in the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex is not the dominant system. You cannot out-discipline a nervous system that is reading the task as a threat. You have to change what the task means to your nervous system. That is a subconscious operation, not a conscious one. Strategy belongs to the prefrontal, behavior belongs to the limbic, and the bridge between them is not effort, it's emotional regulation. Are you ready to go deeper? Because now we will go deeper. And I'm going to ask you to stay with me, because this is a layer most teachers skip. And it's where the real key is. Start with the Greeks. Aristotle had a word for this, akrasia. Translated badly as weakness of will. Translated better is acting against your own better judgment, knowing the good and choosing otherwise. For 2,500 years, philosophers have argued about how acrasia is even possible. If you truly know the good, why don't you do it? Socrates thought it was impossible. He believed nobody knowingly chooses against their own benefit. Aristotle disagreed. Aristotle said, yes, you can know the right thing and still be moved by appetite to do otherwise. And that gap between knowing and doing is the crack the entire field of psychology eventually grew up around. Procrastination is the daily lived experience of acrasia. You know what to do. You watch yourself not do it. And you cannot, in that moment, locate the part of you that's daring. Now jump forward 2,000 years to Heidegger. Heidegger has a concept called Verfallenheit, fallenness, the condition of getting absorbed in everyday distraction, in idle talk, in the noise of being among others, and in doing so, falling away from your own authentic existence. Heidegger thought this was the default mode of being human. Most people, most of the time, are not living their own lives. They're falling into the lives that were already there to be fallen into. Procrastination in this lens is not a productivity failure. It's a flight from authenticity. The task that you're avoiding is almost always the task that would force you to confront who you really are and what your life is actually for. The trivial tasks don't trigger procrastination. The big ones do, because the big ones are the ones where the real you would have to show up. That's why procrastination is sharpest right at the threshold of the meaningful, right at the doorway of your actual life. Now, the esoteric layer. And this is where I want you to really listen. There's an old tradition of mystery teachings called Hermeticism. One of its core texts, the Kabbalion, lays out 7 principles. The Hermetic principles that are supposed to govern reality at every level. One of them is the law of rhythm. The law of rhythm says everything flows. Tides come in, tides go out. There are seasons, there is expansion, and there is contraction. Day and night, effort and rest, inhale, exhale. This is true for the cosmos, true for the body, true for the mind, true for a business. Now, here's the contrarian piece. In the modern self-development world, the law of rhythm gets fetishized. People love it because it gives them permission. I'm in a low energy season. I'm honoring my rhythm. I'm in feminine receptive mode right now. It's not the season for output. Procrastination is, more often than not, the law of rhythm turned on its head. The Hermetic teaching is that rhythm is real, but a master of the principle does not become a victim of it. The Kabbalion is explicit about this. The principle of rhythm has a counter-principle called the law of neutralization. The adept observes the swing of the pendulum through awareness, refuses to be carried fully into the either extreme. The slave of rhythm is dragged from peak to through. The master of rhythm watches the swing and stays centered. So when you say, I'm honoring my rhythm, ask yourself, honestly, am I a master observing a real cycle, or am I a slave dressing up avoidance in spiritual language? Real rhythm is rest after exertion. Real rhythm is fallow earth after harvest. Real rhythm is sleep after a full day. Fetishized rhythm is 6 weeks of season of rest when you haven't actually exerted yourself in months. Real rhythm has a tide. Fetishized rhythm is a stagnant pond calling itself a tide. Procrastination at the esoteric level is the inversion of a real principle into a false one. You weaponize the language of the cycles to legitimize the avoidance your subconscious wants anyway. Across all 5 layers, the Latin distinction between strategic delay and inavia, the psychological identity protection, the limbic override, the akrasia of the Greeks, the fullness of Heidegger, the inverted law of rhythm, the same shape keeps appearing. Procrastination is your system protecting itself from a state change. It is continuity defending itself against transformation. And that's why every paradigm we just walked through points at the same root: the mind, the subconscious, the patterns running underneath everything. I want to ground this for you because you might be thinking, this is interesting, but is it actually applicable? Over the last 4 years, I've done this work intensively with founders, people who are very successful, people who have achieved great things, different industries, different stages, and almost always when we get under the surface, we find a procrastination pattern that is not about time, not about strategy, not about systems. It's about an old emotional contract the subconscious is enforcing. The trader who couldn't pull the trigger on the strategy he already knew worked. The agency owner who had the offer ready for 9 months but couldn't bring himself to send the email. The founder who kept rebuilding the website instead of selling. Different surface symptoms, same root. And when we use clinical hypnosis to get underneath the cognitive layer, to actually sit with the limbic signal, change what the task means to the nervous system, and rewrite the identity contract underneath it, the procrastination doesn't get managed. It dissolves because the thing that was generating it is no longer generating it. That's not a hack. That's a different category of intervention. 9 years of meditation practice, 2,000 sessions, 4 years of intensive hypnosis work. This isn't a theory I picked up. This is what I do every day. So we walked through 5 paradigms. Now I owe you a way to actually use them. Here's the protocol. 5 moves, run them in order because they compound. Move 1. From the definition layer, the 2-word audit. Before you label any delay as wise patience or honoring my energy, ask, is this strategic delay or is this inavia? Be brutally honest. Strategic delay has a clear named condition that has to be met before action. Inavia has fog. If you can't finish the sentence, I will start when blank with a clear, falsifiable condition. You're in inavia. Name it. The naming alone breaks half the spell. Move 2. From the psychology layer. Find the feeling underneath the task. Pick the task you've been avoiding. Ask, if I did this right now, what would I have to feel? Not the task, the feeling. Inadequacy, visibility, the risk of being judged, the weight of becoming someone new. Write it down. Then ask the harder question. What identity does my procrastination protect? What version of me stays safe as long as this stays unfinished? That sentence, if you let it, will tell you exactly what your subconscious is guarding. Move 3. From the neuroscience layer. Lower the limbic signal before you start. You cannot outthink a stress response. You can lower it. 5 minutes of slow nasal breathing, longer exhale, then inhale before sitting down to do the work. Cold water on the face. Pattern interrupts. Do something that you don't usually do. Get into a different state. A short walk. The goal is not to motivate yourself. The goal is to drop your nervous system from a threat into safety so the prefrontal cortex can actually take the wheel. Most people skip this and try to grit through it. That's why grit doesn't scale. Move 4 from the philosophical layer, the Heidegger test. Ask yourself, is the task I'm avoiding a trivial task or a threshold task? Trivial procrastination, dishes, admin, errands is mood repair. Threshold procrastination, the book, the launch, the conversation, the offer is fullness. The protocol is different for each. Trivial tasks lower the limbic signal and start. Threshold tasks, you have to confront the question of who you are if you finish. That confrontation is the work. The action follows. Move 5 from the esoteric layer, the honest rhythm question. Ask yourself, with no spiritual decoration, am I in a true rest period after real exertion, or am I calling stagnation a rhythm? You're in inverted rhythm. The fix is small, deliberate exertion until a real cycle re-establishes itself. Run those 5 moves and you will have done more for your procrastination than 10 years of productivity content. I'm being completely serious, and here's the catch. These moves work on the conscious layer. They give you traction, they give you self-awareness. For some patterns, they're enough. But for the deep ones, the ones tied to identity, to old emotional contracts, to subconscious programming installed before you were old enough to consent to it, awareness gets you to the door. It doesn't walk you through it. That's where hypnosis work comes in. That's where the subconscious itself has to be addressed directly by someone who knows how to do it safely. You can't do it for yourself the same way a surgeon can't operate on themselves. The system that's producing a pattern can't see itself clearly enough to dismantle it. If this training landed, if you watched the last 30 minutes and recognized yourself in more than one of these layers, here's what I do next. I work one-on-one with founders and business owners on exactly this. We get on a call, we map out the specific pattern that's running you, we identify which paradigm it's rooted in, and we put together a plan. Not a productivity plan, a subconscious plan. It's a conversation, no obligation. I want to understand where you are and whether what I do is actually the right fit for what you need. Let me be upfront about who this is for. If you're a founder doing somewhere between 5 and 50,000 a month and you can feel your ceiling isn't a strategy problem, if you've been avoiding the same threshold tasks for weeks, months, sometimes years, if you already tried discipline, planners, coaches, courses, retreats, and they all worked for a minute and then the pattern came back, then we should talk. If you've already done some inner work, good. That means you know what this is about and you're ready for a piece that actually makes it permanent. If what you're looking for is affirmations or a new productivity stack or someone to give you a system to push harder, I'm not your guy. I do deep work. It takes honesty and it takes commitment. I'm not interested in anything surface level. Life's too short for that. I keep my client roster small on purpose. This is one-on-one and is structural, systematical, and methodical. If you work with me, you will get my full focus. And if there's a part of you right now saying, yes, this is what I need, and immediately a second voice saying, not yet, not now, maybe later, listen to that exchange very carefully. That second voice is the exact mechanism we've been talking about for 30 fucking minutes. It doesn't want you to change. Keeping you where you are is its entire job, its entire program, its entire reason to survive. The fact that you stayed for the whole training tells me you're not someone who needs more convincing. You're someone who needs to act on what you already know. So, go to Instagram, find me at Life of Emil August, send me a DM with the words "stuck owner wants to change." That's how I know you watched this training all the way through and you're serious. I'll personally read your message and we'll set up a time to talk. You try the apps, you try the discipline, the planners, the retreats, the coaches, and you're still here watching this because something in you knew there was a deeper layer. There is. We just walked through 5 of them. Life of Emil August on Instagram. Send me stuck owner wants to change. Let's find out what's actually running the show and let's turn it off forever.